Good morning and welcome to the pre-agenda interviews for Wednesday, November 9th, 2022. All right, so today we have one appointment for the Housing Opportunity Fund Advisory Board and one appointment to the Disruptive Property Appeals Board for consideration. So typically council receives the nomination, comes over from the mayor's office, from the administration, and sometimes most times we hold interviews. So thanks for coming here. Today we have Karen Garrett, and that's the candidate for the Housing Opportunity Fund, and Parker Goolsby, Parker Goolsby for the Disruptive Properties Appeals Board. So currently, and I'll just say first off, it's great to have you here, but also to take the time out of your day to come here, but also the time in the future that you're willing to dedicate to the city of Pittsburgh and its residents. So I always say, mostly in campaign times, but when people are out there knocking doors, but this is also any sort of public service, and it's like any sort of volunteer time is rightfully yours. And I always want to just take a moment to appreciate that you're taking time to, whether it's you or your family, someone's going to have to, give a little bit more. And I know that's difficult sometimes, to make everything work out. So I think I'd like to start off by just, if you could introduce yourself. We'll start with Karen. Oh, I need to read the title, Bill. Will the clerk please read the title? But we have an official path we have to go down here.
Bill number 827, resolution appointing Karen Garrett to serve as a member of the Housing Opportunity Fund Advisory Board for a term to expire April 30th, 2026. And Bill number 897, resolution appointing Parker Goolsby as a member of the Disruptive Property Appeals Board of the City of Pittsburgh for a term to expire December 31st, 2024.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Members may join, and I'll recognize them as they join. But getting back to what I was mentioning, I'd like, Karen, if you could start us off, and then Parker, if you could continue. Just a brief introduction and, why you're interested in serving in this role.
Morning. My name is Karen Garrett. I am currently the,
Hold the mic closer.
okay, sorry. Is that better? Okay.
Perfect.
Good morning. My name is Karen Garrett. I am the director at the Housing Authority City of Pittsburgh. I work in the Resident Initiative Department. I've been with the Housing Authority. It'll be about 2 years this January. I started at the Housing Authority in the Housing Choice Voucher Program, and within the last 7 months was promoted to the director of the Resident Initiative Department. My executive director, Castor Binion, nominated me as a potential candidate to serve in this capacity. And my background, I most recently, I guess within the last 3 years, received my PhD in public policy. And I just feel like that has kind of provided the gateway for me to really embark upon this commitment in the Housing Opportunity Fund Advisory. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. And Parker? Is it okay if I call you Parker?
Yes, I prefer Parker.
everyone's
Yeah,
fine.
I just put the J on there for legal purposes. My first name's John, so but
Gotcha.
I don't go by that name. I'm Parker Goolsby. Excuse me. I've been a resident of Pittsburgh for a little over a year, but very familiar with Western Pennsylvania, Allegheny County. I was humbled and honored to receive this nomination from the Brighton Heights Citizens Federation for the Disruptive Property Appeals Board. We've had, as you may know, violence increasing in our neighborhood, and I believe it is one of Mayor Gainey's priorities to get this board up and running again. I believe I'll be a great asset to this board. My background in regards to dealing with different types of violations and that sort of thing. I received my master's degree in student affairs and higher education in 2009 with the focus on housing, higher ed housing. And in that role, I was the lead student conduct person for all housing violations. I adjudicated hundreds of cases in regards to community violations, drug and alcohol violations, as well as student conduct violations that were outside the realm of the housing area. I know in our community why I was tapped to be nominated for this board was because, you know, they want to see change. They want to see action. And, you know, sometimes, you know, it takes a village to really get that going. You know, we can't rely on, you know, certain people or, you know, the police to always do things. I think it really takes a community initiative to really get the ball rolling and to see change in our community. And I'm hoping by being on this board that I can be a catalyst for that change and to specifically bring a better light to Brighton Heights, but as well as the city of Pittsburgh.
Thanks. So, Karen, if I could start, I'll ask a couple questions. So, with the Housing Opportunity Fund, I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at what the path they've been going down, but just to know your thoughts on what you think the benefits are of the Housing Opportunity Fund and what it can do for people.
Well, I haven't had the opportunity to kind of review my thoughts around the benefits that could truly help individuals in terms of home ownership, creating affordable housing. Having worked in the housing choice voucher, I recognize that there are so many people that are out here with vouchers and not able to find suitable housing. So I also was part of an emergency housing voucher initiative that the Housing Authority received about a year ago. And the barriers that exist are momentous in terms of people being able to access housing and housing stock. But one of the roles that I currently play, excuse me, as the director of resident initiative is to look at ways where individuals can become self-sufficiency. And self-sufficiency is different for all people. But specifically in terms of home ownership, there's a component that exists that those that are would like to do that, we help to provide service plans for people in our FSS department that will help to kind of map out what it takes for home ownership. Also looking at the Housing Authority also has funding available, and we partner also with the URA so that once someone is committed to home ownership, they will also be able to have the funds that support that channel by which, you know, their what they consider the American dream of owning their own home could be possible. And certainly there are selection criteria, there are counseling that must take place, there are budgeting and just really getting your finances in order, and in some cases even becoming employed is certainly all of the variants that we kind of work with individuals. So this opportunity to sit on this fund and kind of look a little differently into the ways that this could potentially help individuals that are out there was certainly one of the things that kind of inspired me and thought, hey, this might be a good place for me to make a difference. And so I appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, you mentioned the gap there in terms of the voucher, and then there aren't housing for, you know, housing options. What's up with that? I mean, we have 7,000, 8,000 vouchers that can't be used. I mean, I have some insight into it, but I'd like to hear from you on, you know, how, let me just kind of narrow down the question. So we have roughly 8,000 vouchers out there that people are qualified, have in hand, or could use. That's my understanding. So there's that housing gap. I mean, when we talk about the issue of homelessness in the city of Pittsburgh and what the options are for people, you know, the outreach workers are saying, look, everyone's signed up, but there's just not the housing component connected to it. So we've had programs in the past where PNC has donated funds to the URA. I believe it was 500,000 back in 2020. I haven't followed it. I should get an update on this, but there's a program where landlords, you know, if they agree to accept the voucher, then they can get like 0% loans to fix the property up so it can meet the standards of what's required in the HUD requirements. I mean, how are we really going to make a dent in all this? And do you see that Housing Opportunity Fund is a way to make a dent in, or I'm sorry, maybe dent isn't the right word. Expand the amount of housing that's available.
Well, certainly, some of the strategies that are being used are really to work with the landlords, because many of the units that are subject for individuals are now, we have a pre-inspection, so that at no cost to the landlord, if in fact their unit, or they're interested in putting their unit online for a rental, there is an opportunity for some pre-inspections, because some of the houses, as you are aware of, some are very old, and some require a little bit of work, and some require very extensive work. So we're looking at ways to kind of bridge that gap, but we're also looking at, there's a lot of new development here in the city of Pittsburgh, and how, and trying to I guess, overcome some of the myths around what a Section 8 or housing choice voucher person looks like. Because that myth in itself sometimes is a barrier to why individuals.
Yeah, I appreciate you talking about that, because that's often what I think about. Like, we need to literally hire lobbyists to go around and work with landlords to say, look, this is
Look like you and me. No, you're not.
Yeah, or this is what it looks like to, you know, someone who lives in this property, that, or a family lives here, you know, that will use a voucher, even for the unhoused population. You know, we need advocates that are, you know, advocating for just the housing in general. You know, we're going through a time right now where I think I've talked to a few landlords, and they're, you know, some are unhappy about the, you know, eviction moratorium continued, you know, in the past throughout the pandemic. And they're like, I'm being a lot more strict now on who I'm going to let in my property. So those are all the conversations that need a good individual to, you know, a well-qualified individual to go and address the situation and tell them, you know, just to try and meet them where they're at and see what their concerns are. We are joined by Councilman Kraus on the line. Councilman, do you have questions?
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Not at this time. I'm kind of struggling with my Zoom here, but appreciate everyone that took the time to come in and speak about their desire to serve in these positions. And thank you for offering me the time to speak. But at this point in time, I have no questions. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
All right, thanks. With that, we'll go to Parker. I appreciate your willingness to serve. This Disruptive Property Appeals Board is part of Mayor Gainey's Plan for Peace, the public safety plan. And specifically, I think this, you know, you're, you know, sitting here came out of a neighborhood meeting where Chief Wheatley came, and, you know, it was after, you know, some concerns that have some, you know, activity, criminal activity that happened in your area. And the whole conversation was broadened as to just how do we tackle all these different issues. And so from there, you know, I was playing a part in terms of asking your board, you know, with Chief Wheatley, like who would you like to, you know, if you had a nomination, who would you select? So I appreciate you sitting here. Appreciate your board for going through that process. What are you looking what do you think is possible here in terms of, you know, how this fits into the plan for peace, and then also, just your understanding of what can be accomplished on this board.
Sure. I think one of the pieces of this is to be community based, not really, we're not here to, keep putting fines or liens on your type of properties or designate them as, disruptor properties. I really think having this board and this whole program reinitiated is really going to show the city of Pittsburgh and its residents that we are a community based, city. We care about one another. We really want to help people out. I realize that many hardships come into people's lives where, yes, these types of violations that would be deem you as a disruptive property would be a hindrance to your life. But at the same time, I realize that enforcement of those properties really shows not only people's ability to not only confront issues in their community by reporting them, whether that be through 311 or, in more serious cases by calling 911, which is, a very escalated level for that. And at the same time, as my understanding of how this board is going to interact, this would be an appeals board. So if it gets to that level where these individuals or these households are going through a process where the city has deemed them as a disruptive property, I would hope they would come and share their side. There's always two sides to a story. What is going on where your property has been deemed this way? There's a myriad of different violations that I saw in the past that have deemed it a disruptive property. I don't know if that's going to be updated either through the mayor's office, public safety, or based on the recommendations of this board. But some of those types of violations do seem kind of archaic and ancient, in my opinion. But at the same time, there is a understanding that violence is affecting many people in the city of Pittsburgh, not only my community, but citywide. And I think that this board will also be seen as a way to give people some hope that there is a process that's in place, that there is a process that's working. And at the same time, people in the community can have solace that if there's been a problem property that's been in their neighborhood for months or even years in some cases, that something's actually happening. And like I said, I don't want to be viewed as someone who wants to negatively put people in a light that, oh, your property is disruptive. My goal to be on this type of board is to show that Pittsburgh, again, is a community focused city, and that we are here to help one another out, whether that be through civic duty or by, going over and asking your neighbor if he needs some help. If it's a trash situation, do you have a good relationship to your neighbors? Build those positive relationships and help one another out. So we don't have to get to this level where we're deeming properties all over the city as disruptive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see this as an opportunity, especially people who are embedded in the community, when they're involved in the board. You can also speak to, whether it's at the community meeting or just phone calls to friends that are concerned, and we can really have the conversation of what's possible, because I think a lot of times, there are instances that happen in the neighborhood, and whether it's with a property or just crime in general, and people, they want to put pressure on let's say a property, and I think people on the government side, we're trying to do all we can to what's right for the community, what's just within the law that we can even do. And I think this is also an opportunity just to be transparent about what's possible. But also, like you said, there will be situations that arise that you're like, something else is going on here. Like, it's just not that X is wrong with the property or X has happened with the property, but there's a real service that could be provided that's not being provided. So even like some magistrates who they partner with different organizations that can offer services when it's recognized. It'd be interesting to see how this disruptive property appeals board places itself within all the different things that are happening, all the different investments that are being made in the city in terms of Office of Community Health and Safety, partnering with the county probably would be a big one in terms of Department of Human Services, and then also as we build out alternative police response, and all those, because right now we have police, fire, EMS, and so but there's been a bigger push to partner with the county and leverage all the services that they can provide for people, and then also kind of create, like I said, OCHS and alternative police response to kind of meet the county where it's at. I think that's a lot of really to leverage the county, like really pull on all the $1.3 billion that the county uses to try and tackle issues related to what people are going through DHS. So I see there's an opportunity there, but I also see there's a way that there could be some enforcement, transparency about what's possible, having people in the community that can know what the neighbors need, but then also an opportunity to recognize services that are lacking. So I appreciate everything. Councilman Kraus, do you have any questions for Mr. Goolsby, or are you good? All right. You've heard me talk long enough. I appreciate all your time for coming in. And unless you have something else to say.
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Well, for me, I don't know if you have anything. For me, I did have follow-up questions. I realized, this term does have an expiration date. Do you know when this term is initiated? Like, when would this property or disrupt properties appeal board start?
So I haven't been following the amount. So we've been approving individuals to be on the board, and there is, I think once it's at a certain number, then they'll activate it. But we're gonna have to put you in touch with the administration as soon as the mayor would sign the appointment.
Okay.
Because they would be the ones to administer that whole board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. We try to fund every the administration, and then they'll be responsible for activating it. So we'll put you in touch with them.
I didn't have any parting. I was pretty clear on.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mm.
All right. Well, call the meeting or interviews. These interviews are adjourned.
Good morning and welcome to the Standing Committee's meeting for Wednesday, November 9th, 2022. Due to circumstances beyond our control, TV live streaming is unavailable until further notice. However, meetings can be viewed live on the city's YouTube channel. Our first order of business is roll call, and I would ask the clerk to please take the roll.
Reverend Burgess, Mr. Coghill, Ms. Gross, Mr. Kraus,
Here.
Mrs. Cal Smith. Here. Ms. Strasburger.
Here.
Mr. Wilson,
Here.
Mr. Lavelle Chair,
Here.
5 members present.
Thank you. Our next order of business is public comment. I would like to remind all speakers that the rules of council state that comments are limited to matters of concern, official action, or deliberation, which are or may be before city council, and profanity will not be permitted. After you are called, please restate your name and your neighborhood for the record. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak. Our first registered speaker is Dr. Ronald Lynn Miller.
Dr. Ronald N. Miller, Belsuver and the Hill. I'm a member of the Thelma Lovett YMCA Center. I invite you to join me and my Glow Ballers basketball team there. Global Intelligence Society U.S. National Candidate for President 2024, vote by voter verification, and uncensored freedom of speech and public comment are core of what I'm about. A concern of Pittsburgh City Council seems to be civility and decorum in the council room with the yellow sheets that were handed out today. On 7 November 2022, at the start of public comment during the Pittsburgh Council regular meeting, Mr. Wilson, Ms. Strasburger, Ms. Gross, Mr. Coghill, and Mr. Burgess all turned toward the public comment lectern right here. But Mr. Lavelle, no. Mr. Lavelle, you were looking toward the presider lectern. So all a PC presenter could see was the back of your head. This is civility. This is decorum. This is middle school. I, RLM, was the first public comment speaker. When the second PC speaker came up, you, Mr. Lavelle, turned around. You do not dispute this description as factually accurate of your action. Mr. Lavelle, your publicly recorded witnessed action, in my view, is a civil rights violation for bias against one person, myself. So I'm going to take up some of my time here, but would you like to leave? Would you like to turn around and I'll listen to what I have to say? A concern of Pittsburgh City Council is to support BPEP, the Black Political Empowerment Project. With gaining approval, Pittsburgh Council provides money to Tim Stevens and BPEP, but no non-Black political empowerment groups. BPEP told Black Pittsburghers to vote for Gainey primarily because he's Black. We need a Black mayor, they were told. That is not racist. Do you not think, councilors, that City Council should support, with taxpayer cash, Asian PEPs, Latin PEPs, Native American PEPs, even white PEPs? I do. If you do not, in my view, that is racism. Your actions or inactions on this issue of political empowerment in the city, in my view, are racist.
Thank you. Our next registered speaker is Naomi Mullen.
Good morning. Shady trees, not shady deals in Bon Air. According to the Pennsylvania Constitution, the purpose of government is for the peace, safety, and happiness of the people they serve. The Bon Air Memorial Green Space is the solution for the peace, safety, and happiness of the Bon Air community. Without that, there is no valid governance. Open deals in Bon Air. Councilman Kraus got a deal to gain McKinley Park from us. Now we want a green space in place of the detrimental school building. Acquire Bon Air School for $1, tear it down, use Pittsburgh trees and parks tax money to make a green space. This was read at my husband's funeral. It was written by Battalion Chief Douglas Praskovich. Retired Deputy Chief Mike Mullen touched the lives of many people. His uncompromising dedication to his sworn duty to provide for the safety of the citizens of Pittsburgh was truly exceptional and one that should be emulated by every firefighter. He loved sharing his knowledge of firefighting in all its many aspects to make our firefighters safer, smarter, and more efficient on the fire ground. Mike knew most of the firefighters on the entire Pittsburgh Bureau of Fire by their first name and was always approachable regardless of rank. If you had a question, he would stop what he was doing to answer it. He worked tirelessly, but also energetically his entire career in pursuit of more knowledge. His legacy will serve our citizens and firefighters for years to come. Michael J. Mullen lived a full life, as his obituary so accurately described. Mike was passionate, tireless, dedicated, highly conscientious and caring. Well done, Michael. Well done. Rest in peace, my friend. Join our supporters, Mayor Gainey, Councilman Coghill, and State Representative Benham for the creation of a green space. The Memorial Green Space is the solution for the peace, safety, and happiness of our community. shady trees, not shady deals in Bon Air. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next registered speaker is Amy Teresa Comparator.
Good morning, Council. May it please the Council. First, I want to thank Mayor Gainey and Councilman Bobby Wilson and a few other county and district officials for coming out to the north side yesterday. You could have gone anywhere, but you came to see us. That means more than you realize. I also want to thank Mayor Gainey for beginning to get our elevator issues resolved over at Presley Street High Rise. That's at least some progress, and it's probably the most progress we've seen so far. So thank you all for those beginnings. For too long, the north side has also been known as the war side among communities that are plagued by gangs. To me, it is no coincidence that the shootings that occurred in 3 north side locations, Cedar Avenue, Brighton Road, and Northview Heights, are all by 3 different HACP, Housing Authority, City of Pittsburgh, low-income housing projects. I live in one of those projects, so I know some of what goes on. These 3 locations are also known to be Crip gang locations as well. In order for our residents to be safe and live a life deserving of any Pittsburgher, of any citizen in the United States, of any citizen in our Commonwealth, we must get rid of the drugs. Gangs and drugs go together like cereal and milk. One feeds into the other. Gangs and drugs deals go on over at the lower end of Allegheny Commons Park. You will see them near the playground. You'll see them up high near the statues. East Ohio Street is also a place where many things like this happen as well. It is time the north side gets called out so that we can push our community and ourselves back up and become the north side we were meant to be. The shootings are happening on a consistent basis on the north side. I ask all contributing to the violence to stop. Please stop the shooting. Guns are not the answer to any argument, conflict, or discussion going wrong. To that effect, I've also been threatened in my building by violence as well. Happened last night, and I thank God for my security guard. The north side deserves to be a better place, a safer place, a place where all can thrive, from individuals to businesses to housing and shelters. There is a place in the north side for everybody. At least there ought to be. And please, if you're on the north side, please be kind on the north side. Thank you.
Thank you. That exhausts our list of registered speakers. Anyone in chambers wishing to speak, please come forward, provide your name, neighborhood for the record. You will also be given 3 minutes to speak.
My name is Yvonne F. Brown. I live in 715 Mercer Street up in the Hill District. I have my signs again. Yesterday, I was sitting back. Well, no, not yesterday. I'm saying on the 7th. That day was a horrible day for me because that's the day my son died. He was killed. Okay. I'm sitting back there and I'm really not feeling too well. And I see Mr. Burgess coming towards me. But I put my head down. I said, no, he's not coming to mess with me. And that's what he did. He came and he got the point that this is not, I told him to get back up there in the front where you're supposed to be. You don't come back here any other time. You won't even be here when we speak. You peep in the door to see if people are speaking. Then you go back in your office or you come when we get finished speaking. But you know something, Mr. Burgess? I believe it was against the law for you to come and attack me, target me. So I'm telling you, fair warning, I'm in the process of writing a lawsuit against you individually and collectively, the whole council, because of your colorism, whereas Tim Stevens, the light-complected fella that you give money to, that you'll let him speak as long as he wants to, even though I can only get 3 minutes. And with my 3 minutes, you, Miss Gross, Carl Hill, talk during my 3-minute time. That's against the law, but you do it all the time. You sit on the sidelines talking. Mr. Lavelle last week, he got his phone again, sitting here texting while we're talking. You're supposed to be listening to us. You're supposed to let us speak. Freedom of speech, expression, thought in my eyes. Once I looked sideways, Miss Rudiak, Miss Brown, you must face the front. Do you understand that you are 100% wrong? And you too, I tell you, as I know, Jim Furlow is turning over in his grave when he thinks, if he knows what Jim's doing. Jim Furlow was carried out here, hogtied because he wanted to use his freedom of speech. He became a councilman to fight for the people for us to be able to speak. He fought that I could get the record. I kept asking, what are the rules? Because Valerie McDonald would start the meeting with 1 or 2 councilmen. I know there's supposed to be 9. I know there should be a quorum. I kept asking, where are the rules of council? Linda Wassler kept saying we don't have any in print. He finally, months, and it might even been a year, he said, oh, come on, give the citizens the books. And they had to put them there. I used to take them up to the cities, up to the senior home. They don't even put the books anymore. See, they're good to start, bait and switch. They start something and then they change it. And I'm reading these rules here. Something else you just need to know about Robert's rule. It says that you must repeat when you say something.
Next speaker, please.
Good morning. I'm Bernadette from Beachview. I did some homework for you. Newspapers.com. 1933, January. A formal opening of the new Beachview Community Recreation Center, Fallowfield and Sebring 6-story structure. 500 persons availed themselves of the opportunity to look through the 6-story structure. Game rooms, libraries, movies, gymnasiums. They offered elementary electricity, shorthand, public speaking. I was shocked to find this somehow, and it announces all their activities through 1933. Jumpstart to October 29th, 1949, Mayor Lawrence is heckled at the Beachview local lodge for trying to get a recreation center and swimming pool. So something happened to that recreation center in that time. He was heckled by his opposing party. Then in 2002, you guys allotted not you guys, but you know what I mean, council allotted $60,000 for a senior center / recreation center that then got money taken out for an election a special election tab for Valerie McDonald's seat or something like that. I spoke to a certain elected official yesterday. I worked the polls. He grew up across the area that I want a prefab steel building, 40 by 60 for under $40,000, under $50,000. And he said they had a structure with a roof there for the basketball and everything else down on Pauline. Can help me. Somebody contact me. I know you guys, somebody in this room has my tell me who to go to. We should make this happen. If it was there and it was taken away, if we had a recreation center, a gorgeous one, hoity-toity on Sebring and Fallowfield, these kids are getting angry. I got a message this morning. A local attorney said, do you know what happened last night? Right outside her door in Beachview, over 30 gunshots happened. Our kids are bored. We still haven't buried Clayton, the kid who was shot to death in the back of us on Broadway. I'm not pointing my finger. We need to get on Pauline. It's the easiest, a prefab. There's like an office and a kitchen. They come with them. They drive it up, back it in, and boom, it's there. And you could still have a playground. Help me get them. Help me make this possible for these kids. Thank you.
Very much. Next speaker, please. there anyone else wishing to speak before council? Seeing none, that moves us to our standing committee's agenda. Our first committee of the day is Finance and Law, which is chaired by myself. We have one deferred paper, Bill 870.
Bill 870, resolution further amending resolution number 863 of 2018, effective January 1, 2019, as amended, entitled Resolution Adopting and Approving the 2019 Capital Budget and the 2019 Community Development Block Grant Program and the 2019 through 2024 Capital Improvement Program by reducing Mon Oakland Connector 4-mile run by $400,000 and increasing street resurfacing by $400,000.
Motion to approve the discussion.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Discussion, Council President?
Thank you. Do we have someone from the administration, Mr. Pollock? Director Pollock? Morning, Director.
Good morning.
Mike.
Jake Pollack, Director of the Office of Management and Budget.
Thank you. Well, you're on the ball today. We're not all on the ball today. We're still recuperating from yesterday. Anyway, could you explain a little bit? We talked about taking funding out for paving, and I had initially taken it out of this pot of funding, but you think that you've identified a better source. And I just want to make sure publicly, before I make any amendments, that the funding will absolutely not be used. So could you talk?
Yeah, thank you, Council President. Yes, our guidance, or I guess request, would be that the current resolution be amended to remove or to take those funds from the 2020 capital budget allocation for the Public Safety Center on the VA site. The reason for that request is that there's about $400,000 in that year's allocation for that project. As those are nearly 3-year-old funds at this point, and that project, while we remain committed to executing a project at that site, given the market, as we've seen a number of times at this table this year, construction cost escalation has been enormous, and the current plans for that facility are not in executable form. So by the time we would be reaching back to spend these 2020 funds, they'd be frankly very stale, which is not a fiscal practice that we like to continue. So work needs to be done to revisit the designs and plans for the site. We're committed to beginning on that work in good faith next year to involve the concept. But in the meantime, there are active encumbrances, but there are active plans with the ability to move into execution next year on the 4-mile run project, or at least phases of it. So removing these funds, the funds from that project, which is already prepared to advance much closer to shovel ready, I'll put it that way, a significant disruption. So that's our request.
So I just want to be clear. So the public knows we're taking the funding. I'm going to amend. We're going to take the funding from the public safety training facility. So it's not taking money from police. We're going to do the project, but not in this budget, not using these funds this year. So
yeah, not using the funds that are in the 2020 that were in the 2020 budget and have not yet been expended. And again, the reason for that is as costs of construction have changed, and also as we've further explored what's necessary at that site, a lot more planning is needed.
And you are committed to doing the public safety training.
We own the site, and at present it's under federal restrictions for what it can be used for. So yes, we are absolutely committed to advancing a project there. We're not in a position to start it now.
Advancing that project, the public safety training facility.
Certainly I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name of the federal agency, but the federal agency from which we secured the site has a restriction for public safety uses on the facility. So what I'm saying is that the exact nature of the original sketches might have to change in recognition of circumstances. But yes, a public safety training facility is the commitment. Yeah.
Okay. So then I'm going to make a motion to amend. I'll pass this amendment around members.
See amendment.
Amendments to take it instead of from the flood project where the Mon Oakland Connector project, it's to take it from the public safety training facility, which is not, they're not going to use that funding.
Second.
So
Motion.
I went through that.
Discussion, please.
Discussion on the amendment, Madam President.
And let me just say that these are several streets that in more than one district that the paving is for. And I'll find the list of the streets in a second.
I have Councilman Kraus followed by Councilman Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not comfortable with this right here and now. As the chair appointed to the Public Safety Committee, I need to understand in a much broader holistic sense the administration's commitment to the public safety training facility. So for today, I'm going to vote against this amendment. That does not mean I will do it on Tuesday. I just asked Deputy Mayor Pollack to, if he and I could engage in a more broad-based and holistic discussion as to the future of the public safety training facility.
Yep, happy to do that, Councilman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Wilson.
Yeah, so my understanding is basically there's some old funding that you feel should be moved so we can have like a refresh of funding.
There's old funding that we're not going to be in a position to spend. We have not spent in the 3 fiscal years that it's been there, and we're not going to be in a position to spend next year either. Under current circumstances, and as we've requested numerous times this year, it's not about the projects themselves, it's about the timeliness of the expenditure for capital funds. So when frankly, these funds would be eligible, I believe, for the controller sweep next year anyway, because they will not have been expended in time. So rather than take funding from a project that is prepared to move forward in some form next year, only to have these funds swept next year, it seems prudent, if there's a urgent need right now, to draw funds that are otherwise going to be included in this
Next step for that facility
again,
to actually bring that.
to some degree, we do have to go back to the drawing board on the early design process, as it has been many years since that was initiated. And as I said, much has changed, both in the facilities needs, as well as in the cost of construction and the cost of remediation of existing buildings. You know, the current plan took into account building conditions on the site that are many years old at this point, and some of those will need to be revisited. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to
So
update the plan.
would that be in the form of an RFP for the redesign? Will we see that soon?
We're working on that and working on the necessary scope for a project of this size, which is, I think, a lot larger and more complicated than the original effort envisioned. So yes, there's some work being done, including with the law department, to ascertain how we would do that kind of thing.
Is that in the current budget that was proposed next year? For next year?
No, not named as such, but there are funds for design services in there that we are exploring tapping.
Okay, that'll be a good conversation with the budget time.
Yes, absolutely.
So that we're following through on that. What prompted this increase in street paving? I mean, it's getting cold out. What are we going to pave streets right now?
Well, the asphalt plants are still open, so we are still paving. It's the council president who initiated this legislation. Our request was for a change in the source she was drawing from.
After a conversation with the department.
Just additional streets and what'd you say? And that was requested?
Yeah, there's a few streets, and some are mine, some are in Councilman Lavell's. I think there might be one more. I'm not sure. I'm checking right now.
Okay. Is that going through the typical the streets that are requested? I mean, are we all get the list from Domi on what's rated and everything? I mean, is that something that's going to be across all council districts, or
I
think we all have.
Again, Councilman, my engagement on the topic was around the request and the change of the source of funds. So I can't speak to the selection process. Sorry.
I'll speak to it when it comes back around second time.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Strasburger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just also want to clarify that about the Mon Oakland Connector 4 Mile Run. This is not with regard to flooding or PWSA. That is a wholly separate project. This is known for whatever other purposes. But if you could clarify what that.
I thank you for asking that question, Councilman. I'm a council person, and I apologize for not starting there. The it says Mount Oakland Connector on the legislation because that was the name of the project at the time. The project that those funds will be expended on is the Sylvan Trail construction through Panther Hollow. This is the currently closed portion of the former Sylvan Avenue right of way. A multi-use commuter trail. Those are the current project that is associated with those line items after changes to the plan that were advanced earlier this year.
Okay, thank you for the reminder. That was, it had moved, that was a bucket of money that had moved around several times.
Sure. Yeah, it's the same alignment, but a different plan, a different construction plan, not to create a cartway, but a trail connection.
Unrelated at this point to any flood mitigation.
That's, I mean, yeah.
That's a loaded question, but this particular bucket of money is
The
silver.
the city funds allocated to the project
Yes.
are for the construction of the trail, not the advancement of the flood control project, which is a PWSA project.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you, Councilman Burgess.
I want to talk about maybe two things. One is process, but the other is about the training facility. And this is really more for the public than for members, I think. The training facility is in my council district. The space for it is in my council district. Even though you're hearing it talked about as if it's a building, it is not a building. It is a gigantic site. We're talking maybe 30 square blocks, something like that. Something, I don't know what it is in acreage, but you're talking a massive amount of space. Remote space that is completely isolated from anything else. It is not a building sitting on a block somewhere. It is a complex of 11 or 12 or 15 full-size buildings in a humongous site. So in order to do the training facility, you can't just go and put a building there. You have to build a roadway to it. You have to build the facility around it because it's all these old buildings on this gigantic campus. So to make it safe, it's not something that can be done quickly. And you would probably have to take up probably a year's capital budget. That project would probably take all of our capital budget of at least a year to do. I'm somewhere in some, I mean, it's a gigantic, it's a gigantic process. And so I just want to make sure it's not that there's not a willingness to do it. We're talking about something that's going to take us probably a decade at least to do because of the size of it. And if you haven't been there, because it's hidden, you will not see it unless you know where it's at or you live in that community, because it's in the middle, absolutely of nowhere. It's a part of it's against the river. And I'll tell you where it's at for those of you who are not familiar. If you go down Highland Park, if you go down Washington Boulevard, to the right, once you get past Zone 5, look up. That's the site. It starts at Washington Boulevard and it goes back probably 2-3 miles. It is a humongous. I've been there, of course, because I grew up, in the community. I've been around it before. So Schumann's adjacent to it. Schumann Center is. There are a couple of buildings adjacent to it, adjacent to the site. Job Corps, they're adjacent to the site, but they are small, little buildings in comparison to this gigantic site. So I just want to make it very clear that this is a very harmless amendment because this project is going to be so expensive. Part of the plan was to build a driving facility there, right? Where they can drive police cars and teach them high speed. I mean, it's just big. And the amount of infrastructure money, right? Before you even get to the building, it is so remote, you're gonna have to, and it's so old, you're gonna have to dig up the ground all the way from it to someplace near it just to change the water. I mean, you're talking a major, almost a community-like redevelopment effort. And so I want to make it very clear, really more to the public, Because when you hear this training facility, you're thinking a building on some block somewhere, not 12, 13 buildings in a 5-mile radius dead spot, right? Huh? Whatever, I'm not good at space. That's not my, but it's huge. I mean, it's gigantic, right? It's huge. It's bigger than Mellon Park. It's bigger than Mellon Park. It's bigger than Frick. I mean, it's huge. May not be bigger than Frick Park, but it's that size. Huh?
It is a very large campus.
Yeah,
Council.
I mean,
And
it's big. It's bigger than Mellon though. It's absolutely bigger than Mellon Park. Bigger than Mellon Park, bigger than any normal neighborhood. It's huge. It's the size of a community, really, by itself. And it's because it's hidden, you don't notice it. It's up by trees, it's hidden, you have to kind of go to it and find it, but it's gigantic. I'm sorry. The second thing is this, and this is, I want to, when former council members, you know, I'm the old man on council, right? Mr. Cross doesn't claim it, but I do. I'm the old man on council, him and I. Relationship between them, this is a proper relationship between the administration and council, right? They have plans to pave, you know, 25 roads, 100 roads, whatever that is. It's appropriate for council sometimes to come together and negotiate. And we're really, Mr. Pollock has been just a gentleman and extraordinarily competent professional, and has accommodated council to have these kind of conversations, which is the appropriate conversation to have for council to say, we know our district's a little bit, and there are these extra things that we'd like to provide. And as long as 5 members of council agree, and so my sense is this is something the president has led, has my support. I don't think I have a street in it. I don't think, but I don't think, but I support it. But to the extent we want to do more roads next year, let's say there's some other roads that me and Anthony, for instance, Anthony and I think a lot alike in terms of infrastructure. We may sit down and,
That's
you know,
frightening.
what we do, I think we do, right? We tend to agree on infrastructure. We tend to really, him and I, you know, have great partnerships. We may sit down budget and say, you know what, there's these 3 or 4 roads in our district, maybe, you know, and so this sort of adjustment is a normal, healthy relationship with the administration, because there are times where, because to be honest with you, I don't know about you, I think all of us, it doesn't, whatever they pave, we own. When they don't pave a street in my council district, they don't just call the mayor's office, they call me. And they say, Rev, you didn't get this street paved. When I didn't really do it, but still I wear it. So there are times that I have to, and all of us have to do this. And so this is a healthy partnership and an example of how a council and an administration work well together under an effective president.
Thank you. Councilman Cockett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Pollock, you said we own that property. Do we? Where the training facility is?
we do, yes,
We own it, but we're restricted as to what we can build there.
that's correct. Let me explain that in greater detail. The city went through a process, I want to say in 2017 or 2018, but I might be getting the exact date wrong, about that time, to have it had previously been a Veterans Administration hospital operated by the federal government. The Veterans Administration closed it. It was a mothballed facility for a great deal of time. And there is a program through the General Services Administration at the federal government for municipalities to take ownership of shuttered federal facilities, and with certain use restrictions that can be a zero or low cost transfer. So the city availed itself of that program at the time, and the restrictions placed on the site in that negotiated process back, public safety uses which is one of the eligible uses under the purview of that program. So the city did take ownership of the site and began an early planning process, again, within the last 5 years on the redevelopment of the site for training and other purposes related to public safety. A lot of other uses were also contemplated kind of in that initial brainstorming phase, some of which were deemed not, at least deemed at the time, not in accordance with GSA requirements, some of which were. So there is a sort of preliminary sketch, but that sketch is now several years old. The funding that was allocated to start advancing it is now becoming somewhat stale, and which is, as I think you'll all know by now, a peeve of mine. And as like all of you, one of the city's fiduciaries. And so understanding both that we need to revisit some of those plans to bring them up to date, to revisit them through the light of much changed construction costs and an inflationary environment. We will have to reconsider the way in which the plan was structured. That's not to indicate any lack of commitment to the project, but an understanding that a lot has changed since the original plans were made, and that the remaining funds, which again are at jeopardy for lapsing through the controller's close next year anyway, are not really even going to get us started down that road. So, in a situation where, as we've had to do several times this year, we need to find the least disruptive source of funds to address an emerging need. We think that these are the funds that will least impact citywide plans for capital projects.
Yep. As you know, I'm in full support of the training facility. Sounds like, a dynamite thing. But I'm also in full support for using this money from that project, because I know, as Councilman Burgess had pointed out, that we're far away from having the funds to actually even start this project or even think about it at this point. When we get to that point, the next 10 years, we will be able to apply for federal grants to build or for this site, or is this all going to be on the taxpayers of the city of Pittsburgh, or how's a long-term project look there?
Yeah, I think grant support is possible. Pursuing grants requires a clearer picture of the exact composition of services and costs, right? We need all of that information in order to pursue them. I do not think a project of this scale is possible based solely on the city's own resources. And I would say that, frankly, regardless of what was going to be built there, we are obligated per the deed restriction for it to be a public safety training facility. But even if it weren't, the remediation of the existing buildings alone is larger than most of the projects we do in a year. So that we really do need to take a bit of a step back here. I don't, not for me to characterize the work that went into this to date, but it's just not what we have right now is not gonna get us rolling. And so
it won't even get us that access road, as Mr. Burgess pointed out. And I mean, I'm in full support for using this money for infrastructure now. When we get to that point, if we ever get to that point, we will, I guess, see. Let me ask you this. Do we have any idea as to what we envision there in the end as a price tag?
It would be irresponsible for me to speculate on that, right?
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Somebody did a glossy design of it, and I still have it in my office, buried under all my office, right? And it was $90 million then. That's 4 years ago. So I'm sure with inflation, it's probably about 120 now. It's also a 164 acre site. Thank you.
Thank you. I know it's big. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a big site. Yeah,
It's big.
If I could just, because I think it's actually, Councilwoman, it may be considerably more than that if you take into account not just inflation, but other costs that were not fully contemplated in that initial sketch, which is the reason for me raising this issue now. I think it could be your estimates on inflation increase sound about right to me, but other things that weren't factored in there could grow the price tag further.
So if we don't use it as a training facility, can we change the use within that scope? Or
That's
either training facilities or nothing then.
I think a training facility is an appropriate use for the site and a constructible use for the site. There are other related uses in the design that Councilwoman Gross is referring to, like a relocation of police headquarters there and other associated uses that I think we need to explore. But a training facility, we do need a new training facility. Some of our training facility areas now are in the Negley Run floodplain. They can't remain there. Others are in leased space, which I would not prefer that we continue to pay a lease for them. So there is an absolute need for a new city-owned training facility, and I think this is the right site for it.
It is the right site. It sounds, I was fully supportive of it when the idea came out. I just feel like it's such a high price tag that we may not see it in.
Well, I think
at least my tenure here, if not my lifetime, you know.
I think what we need is and I don't want to get ahead of the actual design professionals whose responsibility this is, but at a high level, I think we need a new sort of comprehensive site plan, and then we will likely need to break the project into multiple phases. The first of which should be a training facility, and then other uses to come later with further exploration and further assessment of our need.
Got it. Okay, now I'm in full support of transferring this money. We're not going to be using it in the near future anyway, so that's it for me. Thanks.
You, Councilwoman Gross.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry for interjecting. So we talked about this at the table on the record. I can't really pull up the video record, which is our minutes, when we had to approve taking the site from the federal government. And I read out loud at the time, I think it was 7 uses for federal property when disposed from the GSA. And I asked specifically at the time, could council later change its mind? And the answer was yes. So there is a process for amending and appealing the use of the 164 acres. We said it on the record in I assume it's 2018. Again, I'm asking my staff to look it up. Since then, there are other cities that have moved forward with these resort kind of campus police training, small villages, basically very, very large sites. I'm not in favor really of this idea. That I've done some digging with other cities that have accomplished them. I'm not convinced that it actually improves policing. I think that's an open question, right? And so our motivation would be, it's simultaneously true that we have some very unhealthy police facilities that need improvements, right? I don't want anyone to have leaking bathrooms and flooding, and so we have to take care of our employees for sure. But there's a narrative, some rhetoric out there that these very large, 100 million plus, when are we type of investments that could rebuild entire sections of our city, right? There's a narrative out there across the country that cities should bear the costs, like a sports arena, right? And it's gonna fix your city. And I'm not convinced that they're getting the results for the investment. And so that's why I asked those questions at the time, because it was kind of like a new topic that I didn't, none of us really knew about. Like, oh yeah, well, we know that we have some really crappy facilities for our city employees, fire, EMS, DPW, going to go through all the departments, right? PLI and planning and everybody. So we're in favor of improving our facilities so that our employees can do their jobs, and absolutely to get training. We do want our police to be trained on how to be, making the public safer. But there's no proof that these elaborate, many million dollar, kind of, again, I just want to keep calling it a resort. I think in Atlanta, they're undergoing this conversation, and they're calling it Cop City. And there's a large opposition to the proposal. So I just wanted to say on the record, I do think that it's not, while it's true, it is a deed restriction on the property, that there is an appeal process is my understanding. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
If I could, it's my understanding.
Certainly, absolutely, Director.
That's my understanding as well. Again, we're for all of the reasons that you put very well just now, Councilwoman. We are committed to a new training facility. But some of the other, you hit an important point as it relates to the co-location of other aspects on the same site versus in different locations. And so I think training is the key utilization we're looking at here, and perhaps in focusing specifically on training and not other types of public safety uses all co-located in the same place. We could both reduce the cost and produce an implementable project and avoid some of the concerns that have been raised in other cities that did those massive campuses. It again goes back to it was a point in time, right, when the initial proposal was created, and we've now learned some things from that. I do just want to reiterate, because of the council president's question, that we are committed to a training facility for things that were included in the initial plan that go far beyond that have to be reinvested.
I mean, right on my phone, on the front page of the General Services Administration, the federal government, it says like when we dispose real property, you can use it for some kind of public good, right? So like homelessness, affordable housing, right? And so it's like right on the front page. I don't have when we were discussing this in depth in 2018, I had like all 7, I think, in front of me, and we just can't find it right now. But there are other uses. It has been a number of years. There's some proof of concept in other cities that we didn't have at the time that doesn't look positive to me. And so it's like lack of proof of concept. And that there are other, we should look at what our city needs are.
If I could also add one more observation, the plan that was created at that time envisioned a new expansive emergency operations center. Since the onset of COVID, we've moved our emergency operations center completely online, so that it made it virtual, so that public safety staff are in the city can convene virtually to have those planning discussions. And it's worked very well, such that even though now we are back to in-person business, those meetings continue to happen virtually. So the need for a rather expensive conference room for that purpose is much reduced. Just to give you an example of ways in which the plans can evolve as time changes.
Thank you. Second round, Madam President.
I want to first thank you for working with me on this, and I want to be clear that we actually had the conversation about what this meant to public safety. I would be really, I said, I will never take $1 from the police or to do anything. That is not me. That's not my agenda. I know other people may feel differently. That's fine. I would never do that. So I want to thank you for making it clear that it would never happen. So that's why he's at the table today, to make sure I felt comfortable, so I could feel comfortable moving it this way and moving and taking the funding from a different source. So thank you for that. But also, you made it clear to me, so I understand people want to do their due diligence and talk to others and to make sure. But I think when the person who stands right below the mayor says, this is what we're going to do, you can talk to 10 other people in the city. If they see something different, it doesn't matter. He's here to reflect what the mayor wants. And that's what will happen. So thank you for that. But I do want to say, I hope that you would, well, first I want to say, back when this whole training facility thing started, it was me who put it in the Act 47 plan. But I put it in the plan because Chief Harper at the time came up with the idea. So I never want to forget that he came up with that idea. You can say things that have happened, but he did do some really good things, and that was one of them. And he wanted us to use the facility as a way to train not just police, but police, fire, EMS, and other, they even said potentially PL&I and other inspectors and other people across the country, and charge other people coming in so it could be used as revenue for the city of Pittsburgh. And it's been done in other places. And he said, we have some of the top-notch trainers here and some of the best in the country here. We should be using our own people and making money here for the city of Pittsburgh. So that's where the idea came from. And we were supposed to look in District 2 in my area, which we did look in a place. And then somebody with a little more power than me decided they wanted that place over there, not on city council. And so they looked at that place. So I'm going to once again say There is a place in East Carnegie with Saloni Bakery, which is a lot of land, very private, borders the several neighborhoods. If we're talking about partnerships, it borders Crafton, Greentree, Scott, Ingram, and it's in the city of Pittsburgh, and it's on the busway and off of minutes from the parkway. So that might be a facility that would cost a lot less and be up sooner. So let me just put that out there. And we could probably use the other facility, as Councilwoman Gross mentioned, for the homeless housing that we've been trying to look into and trying to do, even if you did a little at a time and made it more of a community. And even if you, I don't know if you have to keep those buildings, but maybe put in some tiny homes or something. I think there's a lot of more creativity that we could maybe look in and work through. I just want to say, let's just not scrap and just say that that's what, that we're definitely using it for that facility. Because there's options. There are options. I just told you. So that's why, but I want to thank you for all that. And then I did want to mention about Chief Harper and Daryl Jones. I'm sorry, Chief Jones also went with me that day.
And just to underscore a point you made there, yeah, the vision is for training facilities for all public safety services, not exclusively for police.
And if we didn't take money out of the budget throughout the year from paving, every time we take money from the budget for different projects, we sometimes most of us take it from paving because it seems like an easy thing to do. We wouldn't be having to do this now. So we could have just left it in there and it would have been done. So I just want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gross.
Mr. Chair.
Okay. Councilwoman.
Round or my first round, second round or?
One second round.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So I did find it. I do also want to say that I am going to vote in favor of this today, and we got really lucky with our paving season. I have to say into the record that the roads in my district are atrocious right now, but it's PWSA reconstruction. It is just almost impossible. And Felino crews are just flying all over the place without any safety controls, and trucks are pulling out in the middle of even Penn Avenue without even a flag. And they're just flying all around. I know it's because we got lucky with the weather holding out, but they were so far behind. There are 10-foot by 10-foot by 10-foot deep pits with giant metal sheets over them. So if we keep getting lucky with the weather, I might be moving some money to help with some other things. I also have an alley that's falling into people's backyards at Morningside. Our alley collapsed into 3 yards, and I was told we're just out of emergency money for that. We can't fix it. But we got really lucky with the construction season here. So if it holds out, I think I've got some things I need to spend some money on.
On the emergency funds for slides, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but more to come on that next week.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. And so this is a lengthy discussion on this other topic, this public safety village that we didn't intend to really have today, but I did find the link. Thank you to my staff. Thank you, GL. And so public benefit conveyance legislation, it's on the federal government site. It says disposal.gsa.gov. So the top one is correctional facility, law enforcement, emergency management. The second one is educational use. And there's a paragraph describing under each that I won't keep going today, but so that citizens can look themselves. And I'll send this to members. Highways or widening of public roads. God knows we don't need that. Certainly not on top of a hill above the river. Historic monuments. Homelessness assistance. Negotiated sales sounds to me as something like build your own use. Public airport. Public health uses, public parks and recreational areas, port facilities. There's about 200-foot elevation drop for port on the river there. Self-help housing, meaning kind of like people literally using sweat equity. And lastly, on this website, wildlife conservation. So just wanted to say that into the record. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Coghill. You're right. I apologize.
It's okay.
Councilman Kraus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Having trouble with my Zoom this morning. I apologize. A couple of things come to mind. Director Pollock and members, colleagues. I worry big picture somewhat about our commitment to facilities and the importance that facilities bring to the health, safety, welfare, well-being of constituency. I'm reminded of Director Pollock, where you and I met on the library board campaign to keep libraries open. We were facing 6 branches closing, and we learned the importance of facilities in that discussion, and that even though we are living in a digital age and there are other ways that we can do things and communicate, that brick and mortar is still an incredibly important component. And so bigger picture, I worry about our commitment to facilities and what that might mean for the future, not just today, but 5 and 10 years from now. We are now about, and forgive me for going down this road, and I hope I don't spark a conversation that we don't need to have right now, but we are about to enter our 7th year with the idea of creating a public works facility that serves southwest of the river. And we are still no closer today to the construction of that facility than we were really 7 years ago. And so then to fast forward that to the public safety training facility, I was hoping to bring the conversation around, which it ultimately did, that it is a public safety training facility. It would house police, fire, EMS, and even a broader spectrum if we were to bring in like PLI. And it's also a cooperative agreement between county and city. It was never intended to be solely based on the backs of taxpayers of the city to create this training facility. And then, as I believe was Council President Gail Smith brought up, there was some intent to be able to even nationalize it because of its expertise to actually provide training services even for other municipalities throughout the United States. So I understand it's a far-reaching project and it's a far-reaching vision, but every journey begins with one step. And I worry about the public perception of the second time now that in very difficult times throughout the nation in terms of public safety, that we are taking funds away from the project. And I understand they're small amounts, but I guess I'm talking a more spiritual, holistic approach to our commitment to ultimately seeing not just the facility come to fruition, but the respect that is due our public safety officials to provide them with the tools necessary to do their jobs. And training is paramount in our obligation as a council to provide for our public safety officials, that they are adequately and accurately and professionally trained and given the resource they need to perform their already increasingly difficult jobs that we ask them to do. So my opposition really is in a broader conversation and not limited solely to just the fact that some members would like to see the funds reused in another way. And then not to end on a sour note, I don't mean that to be, but there was some conversation around this is how councils work together. I have been asked to chair the Committee on Public Safety. And I've learned of this live on air as the conversation has taken place, and was not brought into any of the conversations around changing the funding source for the bill and to reuse public safety training facility dollars. And that disappoints me. And I hope we will not do that in the future. So I will remain a no vote today, and most likely at the end of this as well too. But again, Director Pollock, I appreciate your time and effort and energy in entertaining me in a much broader conversation, a more holistic conversation about our commitment to training the men and women that do the very difficult public safety jobs we ask them to do. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Coghill.
Thank you. Again, let me emphasize, I love the idea of the training center. I love the idea of consolidating all of our EMS, fire, police, and possibly others up there. However, I was a big supporter of it. I know, for instance, there's at least one councilwoman here who would love to see the firing range out of her current district for multiple reasons. And I think it's time for me, after this conversation, to start thinking about another facility, as Council President said, only because of the price tag of this thing. And I don't see this happening for years to come. I don't see any new windfalls that the city's going to have in finances, and ARPA funds are not likely to come again as they did. So my question is this: is it costing us anything to let that place, to let the structures there sit for whatever it takes, 10 years, 12 years, 5 years? Is it any burden to the city as it is now? Do we have to knock buildings down? Is it going to cost us anything until we decide?
I'd have to double check to absolutely confirm, but I don't believe we incur any significant holding costs at the moment because the site is unoccupied and secured. So we're not spending any appreciable amount of money on its current condition. Redevelopment of the site would likely require the demolition and or significant rehabilitation of some of the existing buildings. As I mentioned in my earlier comments, the cost of doing that has likely changed since the site was acquired, both because of changing costs of construction and because their condition has likely changed in that time. And we don't have, sitting here today, an updated assessment of those conditions. So there is an opportunity cost to delay to a degree as it relates to what it would take to do that. But it's not really an apples to apples comparison because we don't at present have an executable plan for what we would do. So we would be getting ahead of ourselves to begin that process up there now. I think that answers your question.
Yep, I think we need to start looking at another training facility being the condition of the current ones. And only because I don't foresee this happening for a long time because of the price tag on it. So, and if there are other ways, as Councilwoman Gross brought up, as to, other ways we could use this land, it might be more advantageous to look at other avenues and probably easier to get funding for those other avenues, possibly.
Certainly happy to have those conversations. I just want to reiterate our bedrock commitment to renewed training facilities because they're needed, but happy to entertain any conversation that any member would like to have around alternative locations. I just will also again point out that I believe we've talked a lot about the high cost. We would be looking for ways to reduce that cost through a revised look at the plan itself, which is again why I think that exercise is necessary and that these funds would not be ready for deployment next year.
Sure. So we're going to look at the current site, try to come up with a revised, less costly plan.
Yeah, a less costly, I just want to be clear, a less costly plan could be possible at this site as well at other sites. So
Sure.
That's not a binary condition, but yeah.
Yeah, I would just like to know that we are actively pursuing and looking at other sites simply for the price tag alone. So because the facilities, the training facilities are very important. We want them to have first-class facilities. We want to get the firing range out of Councilwoman Gross's district and, consolidate things. I'm just beginning to wonder if this is the right place because of the price tag, that's all. So thanks.
Thank you. Before going on to the third round, I'll simply say that Councilwoman Gross's one of her points. If you want to have a conversation about holding public utilities to a higher standard in terms of how they repave and repair our streets, I certainly would love to have that conversation. They do an awful job. But third round, Madam President.
Thank you. And I'll say that I do think Brian Ralston does a great job trying to communicate with them, but they just kind of have their own agenda. So, but I just want to say the streets are Woodville, Grandview, McCartney, all in District 2, Landless in District 6, Forest Glen Road in District 5, And he says that another street's being held for utility for the third year in a row. So they're gonna look into that. And then all streets were in the city system and the bottom 1/3 of streets and all had cold patch and from DPW and temporary repairs over the years. And all were called in by residents with complaints to please finish their sections of the streets.
May I comment on the utility coordination point?
Yeah, yeah.
I just reassure council as a former utility employee myself. I agree that we need to improve that coordination. I think it is we have some obligations to improve on our end, which this administration initiated very early this year with the goal of having a more it's not for any lack of effort or hard work, as you pointed out, Council President. The folks who seek to handle that coordination do an excellent job. I think we have an opportunity to start the coordination process earlier in the year to make sure that everyone's schedules are aligning. Again, we took an initial step on that this year, but plan to start earlier the following year. And there are a few long in process technology projects that will make our and the other utilities lists more intercommunicable that I think will help us fix that process. But that's an ongoing conversation and one that we're taking very seriously.
So I just want to thank you for that, but I also want to say, I do think that if we have twofold here, have a person who really does handle the utilities firmly,
Mhm.
and then people complain about them. And so you have one, you either have to build a relationship with them or you have to hold them accountable. And it seems like there's not a good balance for those people. So I want to say it's unfair to our employees that aren't being,
There's also
supported by it.
there's also a tension between putting the road back in service as quickly as possible and getting full restoration as soon as
Yeah.
possible, and they compete with each other for resources. So a more efficient system around that is important as well.
I think it's good that you're having the conversations. And I do want to say, I apologize. I should have mentioned to Councilman Kraus that I was doing this, but I also should have mentioned to Councilman Coghill because it was in the committee that he represents. But I think we all do that to one another, but I apologize. I should have communicated better. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any discussion on the bill now as amended? Seeing none, all those in
I
favor.
apologize. For some reason, I'm having trouble with my Zoom. No on the amendment, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
One in opposition, the amendment does pass. Any further discussion on the bill as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And one no, please. Thank you.
Affirmative recommendation. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Shaw.
That moves us to our new papers, Bill 884.
Thank you, Director.
Bill 884, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of Duquesne Light Company in the amount of $7,053.10 in settlement of a claim for damage to property and equipment near 458 Stenton Avenue from a city environmental services vehicle.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilwoman Gross?
Oh, no, sorry.
Oh, okay. I saw your hand go up.
Mhm.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation, Bill 885.
Bill 885, resolution authorizing an intra-departmental transfer in the amount of $200,000 from Department of Law salaries account to Department of Law judgments account. The transfer is necessary to cover the cost of settlements through the end of 2022.
Motion to approve.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation, Bill 886.
Bill number 886, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of Kittleson LLC in the amount of $22,360.45 for two matters filed in the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas.
I'll hold for executive session.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bill be held for executive session, Bill 887.
Bill 887, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of Thomas Fossick in the amount of $6,002.99 in settlement of a claim for damage to his vehicle from a city police vehicle on Greenfield Road in Shinley Park on January 23rd, 2022.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 901.
Bill 901, resolution updating and amending the rules of council.
A
Second.
motion to, oh, sorry.
With discussion.
Discussion, Council, Madam President.
Thank you. And I want to first thank everyone for working on the rules of council. We actually had several letters. Is Dan Friesen here? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Can you come over? Just talk briefly, just briefly. Sit at the table, please. I want to first thank the Rules Committee, Councilman Kraus, who's been chairing it, Councilman Wilson, Councilwoman Gross, Councilman Burgess, and Councilwoman Strasburger, who also contributed to some of this. I want to thank you all for and all members who just gave a lot of input on this. We actually, can you give a little synopsis? We decided to do this because it wasn't like we wanted to. It was the law department sent us several emails about updating the rules. Do you want to discuss?
Sure. Dan Friedson, solicitor for city council. So the Sunshine Act was amended in August of 2021. Prior to that, there had been several memos from the law department asking for or recommending, I should say, certain changes to the rules of council. In addition to that, through public comment, a few public commenters had mentioned they wanted some changes, and then also council members. So it's been, 20 kind of situation. I wouldn't say this is a final version, but this is a version that has all of those different chef's ingredients in it for you guys to discuss and make an ultimate decision. But I do think that the law department remains unclear as to how or what we would like to do with public comment. And so I think a discussion in an executive session would be the best way to handle getting clarity on that.
So we're going to do two things. We're going to call for an executive session, and we're also going to call for a public hearing because we want to hear what the public's thoughts are on the recommendations. And we have looked into other places and what they've done. You've talked to other attorneys. We've talked to, so I want to thank you because you've reached out and spent a lot of time on this, and you've contacted several attorneys and previous solicitors, current solicitors, and I want to thank all of them for their help as well and for their input. But I really want to thank you for your work on this. I know we consumed a lot of your time, but I want to thank Councilman Kraus really spent a lot of time on these as well. I want to thank him for his time that he spent on getting these moving because it was really important that we got them moving. So with that said, I'm going to make a motion to amend by substitution, and then I'm going to make a motion to hold for public hearing and an executive session.
May I have comment, please, Mr. Chair, beforehand?
Second on the amendment by substitution.
Thank you.
So motioned and seconded.
Discussion, please.
Councilman Kraus.
Yeah, thank you very much. I too would like to take the opportunity to thank Council President Kill Smith, holding our feet to the fire. It was very important that we did a examination of the rules at this time, largely because of post-pandemic and changes that needed to reflect in our rules as to how council conducts itself as a body in light of new technologies, new ways of participation in meetings, the change in some sunshine law that we needed to reflect in there. So it was an important time to take a look at these and to do the revision. So I especially want to thank Council President Kill Smith for her help and assistance. And I want to thank Dan Friedson, who I drove absolutely crazy through the process, but he was a really, really good sport about it. I know I kind of focused on detail, but I felt it was very important. So Dan, I really appreciate your willingness to entertain the different revisions that we sought as we went through there. But you were very much responsible for us being where we are today with the almost completion of the rules here. So I want to thank you and all members of the task force and members at large for taking the time to make certain that for those that are watching, the rules of council are public display to our constituency as to how the governing body governs itself. And that's the importance of the rules. And so they are, I think it was even perhaps Yvonne Francine Brown that might have brought up something this morning about, about the rules of council, and perhaps at one time not being as available as she might have liked them to be. But it's very important in the name of transparency, that our constituency knows how the governing body governs itself. And that's the purpose of the rules and why they are so very important, to make sure that they are always updated and available to the public at large to see. So thank you all very much. Those are my comments. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to amend by substitution? Councilwoman Gross.
Again, I just want to say this into the record. I'm going to vote yes today, and I thank everyone for moving forward. But there is a section that I'm uncomfortable with that is about the tension between the mayor's law department's interpretation of the state sunshine law and the section in our City of Pittsburgh Home Rule Charter, which says that the mayor of the City of Pittsburgh cannot introduce legislation. So members might have heard me kind of go back and forth with the mayor's law department in our sessions working through this. So every Tuesday, we read. And to me, that's the public posting of the agenda that City Council is going to take up 8 days later. And I said that to the mayor's solicitor, and she said, yes, Councilwoman. I said, it's like, in the era when you didn't have a high level of literacy, or you didn't have other ways of publicly posting. Like, remember, we used to have like town criers who would say the things. And she said, well, we don't have town criers anymore. So we have like email and websites. And I said, okay, that's fair. But if we're required to email out the agenda with mayor's legislation on it before our Tuesday meeting, which is what this says, and which is what we've been doing, then why are we even reading the new paper? So our home rule charter says that the mayor cannot introduce legislation and that it goes to the city clerk, but his deadline of, asking for a paper to be taken up by city council is emailing it to city clerk by noon every Friday. So council has the option, right? It's supposed to go, those get assigned to chairs of committees. Those have the option of being taken up by council or not. But the way we're doing it now, and the way these rules say to do it, is that it says that we have to kind of post publicly the mayor's legislation. And I don't think that's true. So we act like we're pocket vetoing when we're not actually putting it on the table yet. But I think it's actually a core function and right, according to home rule charter, of the city council. And so it's working the way we're doing it. But still, I feel like we're getting, we're giving ground a little bit. And I just wanted to kind of say that out loud and say to my colleagues and into the record, because there have been many ways since the home rule charter was created that council has kind of acknowledged that we've kind of abdicated a little bit of our powers. And so I just wanted to kind of note my discomfort, but I'm willing, I know that other members, there are members who don't agree with me. And so I'm supportive today. Like I said, I think what we're doing works. I don't think we have to do it that way.
Councilman, I agree.
No, I'm not, you can ask, but I'm done saying what I'm saying. Thank you.
Just for clarity, you're referring to the section where, except for legislation introduced directly by the mayor under section 208 of the Home Rule Charter, that the section you're finding conflict in?
I believe it's about when we're posting it, isn't it reflected in the rules when we're posting it? When we have to put it out publicly?
Yeah, I tried to capture your concerns, Councilwoman Gross. It's on page 14 of the new substituted one. Under legislation, there's a section 1A, protocols for legislation sent from the mayor's office to city council, which clarifies the home rule charter and just for your own edification, this language here came department. It's not my original language, but I thought it didn't change the nature of your concern. And we tried to address the concern here where there's one exception in the home rule charter where it says when it comes to the organization of units of government, the mayor can introduce legislation. But other than that, and they still need a council member to sponsor it to bring it to the table. But other than that, you're correct. The home rule charter says that only a council member can introduce legislation. And so that is clarified there. And then it says that, the clerk's office, as it's been the tradition, will use their best judgment to assign it to the chair of the appropriate committee, and that the mayor's office, and this is what's different, the mayor's office shall make its best efforts to notify the potential introducing council members of any such proposed legislation before depositing it with the clerk. And then it clarifies that.
I'm just going to stop,
sorry,
since
sure.
if I have the floor, that's not, so, but it's later on page 15 where it says that we have to post it, I think, 48 hours previous to a regular meeting, right? And so this thing that we've been doing, which like we can't walk in the room and put a new paper on the table unless there's a vote to waive the rules. I disagree with that part. I think that is a core power that we have. It is not a power that the mayor has, but this sending out the agenda to the public before our regular meeting of mayor's new papers. I don't think we have to do that because we're announcing them when we read the new paper, and then we're waiting 8 days to actually have them on the agenda. So, but I'm voting yes today, but because like I said, the way we're doing it has taken away a little bit of our powers, but we've been doing it this way for a long time, frankly, right? Reading all the mayor's new papers mostly, and then other members, think that all papers should be read no matter what from the mayor's office. So it's a point maybe we don't need to take up today's meeting to talk about, but.
I'm sorry. Yep.
So I was going to
Talked
say,
about this
you're-
before.
You're right. Please make that amendment, and
Okay.
then we'll talk about it over the week, and we'll schedule the executive session for the other parts.
Any further,
You're right, too.
any further discussion on the bill, on the amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just briefly, if I may.
Second round, Councilman Kraus.
Yeah, thank you. I'll keep my remarks brief. There are parts of Councilwoman Gross's arguments that I agree with. There are parts of the rules that I'm not 100% comfortable with, but that's democracy. That's that's sort of how these things get made. And so, I like to say perfect is the enemy of the good. And we do strive for perfect, but oftentimes we have to settle for good. And that's okay. I think where we are today is we're in a good place. With the bill as amended, and there's opportunity for ample reconsideration and any other minor tweaks members would like to see before we ultimately pass. So I certainly will vote in favor of the amended legislation today and be happy to participate in any other minor tweaks that members may wish to see before we bring it to final vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of amendment by substitution, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The bill has been amended. Any discussion on the bill as amended? Burgess, I believe Madam President will make a motion.
Be very quick. We are probably at this moment, maybe the most influential council this city has had probably 40 years, maybe 50 years. Certainly during my time on council. At least going back to sort of the furlough days, my mentor and friend, there was a concerted effort to deauthorize council. Act 47 absolutely, positively took council's authority away unilaterally. Under Act 47, we were restricted in passing a budget. The budget that we received had been passed by the Act 47 people in ICA before it even got to council. And we were restricted, I think it was 2%. It may have been, Sean's in the room. It was something, I knew it was close because I was finance chair at least 2 years during that process. It was a deliberate attempt to say or to intimate that council was not capable of doing its authority in transacting the business of the city. We survived that. And now we stand as a co-equal, as the charter. I am a supporter of this mayor, period, publicly and privately. But I'm also a member of council. And I believe we have a co-equal, not individually, but as a body, we have a co-equal relationship with mayor in terms of our overseeing the city. And so I will not, I won't say I'll never vote, but I will never advocate for council to reduce its role, to reduce its staff, to reduce its resources, to reduce its influence. All those are measures of a council's capacity to do the business of the city. Because at the end of the day, this is the people's table. We are the most direct, right? We are the most direct and certainly they run the day-to-day duties. But we are elected by council, and I'm old enough to be here when Tom Smith, my friend, the late Reverend Tom Smith, pastor of the Monumental Baptist Church, when he helped found the Metropolitan Crusade for Voters. I was in the room when they brought the team from Virginia to sue the city to have us elected by district, specifically so that people in our city who were not able to have their voices heard. In that case, it was African-American residents, because the districts were being elected, council was elected as a whole. And so the Black elected officials were actually picked by party leadership. And there was no independent vote for independent voices. And so this voice stuff is not ceremonial. It's essential to our democracy. And I'll say that, I was gonna say this later. And I have lived long enough. I have served, I think I'm the longest serving now African-American city government in terms of representing the city. I think I am. And I've lived long enough to see God not only now elect the first African-American mayor, I've seen now God elect the first female African-American member of Congress, and I believe the first African-American lieutenant governor. And so we're at a place now where inclusion and diversity should be part of our everyday conversation. And this is a day of great, at least for me, hopefully everybody, right? We are diverse on council. We have, the first openly gay representative. We have, we have now 3, soon to be 4, women on council, which is the most that we've had in our history.
No, we had 4 before.
But my point is that we've never had more than 4, right? So
No,
we want to get 4. So we're in a good place. My point is, in terms of diversity and equity and inclusion, we are as a city leading what that can look like, right? We look like who? And so we can lead the way, and so I'm excited. I'm grateful to have been here long enough to kind of see what God is doing in this midst, and somehow be a witness and sometimes a cheerleader for this movement and this change.
Mr. Chair.
Kraus?
I don't mean to prolong the conversation here, but I'm going to push back slightly, Councilman Burgess, on the beginning of your remarks that would lead one to believe that state receivership happened in a vacuum, or that there was something nefarious about council going under state receivership. Less than healthy financial decisions that were made by previous councils and previous administrations led this city to the brink of bankruptcy. So the fact that we went under a state receivership, it came from within, not from without. It was not fully realizing our duties as fiduciary agents protecting the taxpayer dollar that led this city to the brink of bankruptcy. And we could have truly gone under state receivership and lost the pension, our municipal pension for all of our hardworking men and women for decades could have gone under state oversight because of the inability to manage our finances properly inwardly, not outwardly. And that's what ultimately led a responsible council to understand that that 47 was really the only alternative that we had. And that happened between any of us. It happened before any of us sat on council. We, Councilman Burgess and myself, came in shortly thereafter, but we had already, it had already been decided by previous councils to go under state receivership. And out of that, and it was very painful. And I'd like to remind, we have new member joining and we have some members that are not as here as long as some others, but those were painful years that we responsibly struggled to right the finances of this city out of our duty and obligation and respect for our constituency and the taxpayers, that the epicenter of everything good that we can provide comes from making certain we are fiscally and financially healthy. And there was a lot of pain and a lot of give and take. And I'm very happy and proud to say that because of my colleagues and previous administrations and this administration, we are as healthy as we have ever been financially. And we are sound and on good financial footing and in our best position to truly do for the constituency that we are led here to provide for. So just wanted to make that, had to put that in there on the record. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councilman Burgess.
Thank you, Councilman Strasburger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand that what the intention is to hold this bill for a period of time, so I won't I won't go into too much detail here. I did just want to say now that I do have some concerns with the changes that are being made or proposed to public comment. I did have a good conversation with Dan Friedson about this, our council solicitor, and he did, make some changes that made me slightly more comfortable, but my concerns remain. I will hold off on delving into detail on my concerns until we have the chance to hear from the public, but I did want to say that publicly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Madam President?
Sorry, motion to hold for a cablecast public hearing and so that one first.
Second.
Second. Aye.
All those in favor say aye. I apologize.
Aye.
Bill be cablecast public hearing.
Also a motion to hold for an executive session for legal analysis.
Yes, second, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bill will also be held for executive session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Kraus. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eddie, and thank you, Solicitor Friesen.
That'll move us to our invoices. Need a motion to approve the invoices.
So moved.
Discussion, second.
Discussion, Councilman?
Yeah, we have a item here, 13,600.
So We need a motion to waive the rules of council to approve it. This is legal. This was part of a RFQ that is attached to it. And RFQs are utilized for one-time bids, one-time purchases between the amount of 5,000 and 30,000. So this is appropriate.
Motion to waive rules with brief discussion, please, Mr. Chair.
We've done that. We're on discussion now, Councilman.
Oh, okay, thank you. I'm sorry, can you please tell me under what department the expenditure is?
It is, hold on one second. Public Works.
We didn't motion to waive yet, but
We're just on discussion right now.
Yeah.
We have a motion to waive.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry. Thank you. I have it. Thank you.
It's at the very top of page 6.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
So we do need a motion to waive the rules so this can be approved, which it is appropriate, but
So moved.
Second,
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So all those in favor of approving the invoices, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Invoices are approved. That takes us to interdepartment transfers. Need a motion to approve.
so move.
second, we also have another, it's a PLI
That's
uniform.
What is it called? That's the PLI's fees that get paid to the state. The only way we can pay it is through using our credit card.
All right, well, just for clarity for the public, like we have 5K limits on this for the past, the past one that we amended and also this one.
What was that one, Bobby? Which one?
Or previously or now?
Yeah.
11.9 for
11,000
uniform construction UCC.
PLI fees that get paid to the state that we
Yeah.
have to pay via credit card.
That's, can you come to the table real quick? I'm sorry. Just so you know, before any of these come to the table, I have our budget office look at them, both the director and deputy director and our solicitor, and sometimes the city councils, the city solicitor.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Peter McDevitt, City Council Budget Director. Councilman Lavelle explained it
And Councilman Lavelle.
perfectly. It's a PLI charge that the only way that we can pay it is with a credit card to the state. These are requirements that we need to make for all the permitting that we do. So that's why it's on the P card and that's why it's over $5,000. It's the only way we can pay it.
Any other discussion? None. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The transfers are approved. Need a motion to approve the P cards.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, P cards are approved. Thank you, Director. That takes us to Public Safety Services Committee chaired by Councilman Kraus. We have one new paper, Bill 883.
Bill 883, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of public safety to enter into an agreement or agreements with the Federal Emergency Management Agency for the purpose of receiving and spending grant funds in the amount of $1,718,181.81 with the local match of $171,818.19 for the purchase of self-contained breathing apparatus.
Motion to approve. Very brief discussion, please.
Second.
Discussion,
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I can't explain it any better than Madam Clerk just did. These are funds that will be received and spent from FEMA. We do have a local match of 172,000, give or take, and they are to purchase scubas for our fire department, which is the self-contained breathing apparatus. So I ask for the support of members, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. That takes us to Public Works Committee chaired by Councilman Coghill. Our one new paper is Bill 882.
Bill 882, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Public Works to enter into an agreement or agreements with the Heinz Endowments for the purpose of receiving and spending grant funds in the amount of $2 million to support the construction of Homewood Field.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Affirmative recommendation. That takes us to our Human Resources Committee chaired by Councilwoman Strasburger. Our first new paper is Bill 888.
Bill 888, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of Human Resources and Civil Service Commission to enter into an agreement with Willis Towers Watson for services related to supporting the city with development and negotiations of employee benefits that are provided to city employees for a sum not to exceed $1,288,000 over 4 years and the payment for the cost thereof.
Motion to approve.
Second. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Affirmative recommendation, Bill 889.
Bill 889, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of Human Resources and Civil Service on behalf of the city of Pittsburgh to enter into a professional services agreement and/or contract with Public Sector Search and Consulting, Inc. for executive search and recruiting services for the city's police chief position and providing for the payment of the cost not to exceed $80,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Discussion. Thank you. It looks like we should have, I saw Chief Frank and it looks like she had to leave. Perhaps Director Schmidt and Acting Director Paula Kellerman available.
Good morning, Paula Kellerman, Acting Director of Human Resources and Civil Service.
Thank you for being here. I'll defer to Council President Gail Smith.
Thank you. And thank you. Another District 2 resident at the table. Have to mention that. Anyway, so I have some concerns just about the whole process. And I did mention this to the administration, that when they did the search, they did it all over the city of Pittsburgh and excluded the entire West End neighborhoods. So all of District 2 is not included, which you live in. So it looks to me as if you're just targeting a certain area and a certain demographic, that you're trying to get the response that you want. It doesn't look like it's a sincere effort. So I have to put out there that I was very disappointed that it did not occur in our district, as well as it has for the rest of the city of Pittsburgh. Because I know my district now does not feel like they are part of it. And part of the search. It looks, I told the mayor, I said 5 people may have showed up. But the second you excluded them, 500 or so are watching now to see why you excluded them. And it raises the level of concern when you do that. Most of the time, people aren't attending the meetings. They're busy. They have a lot going on in their lives. So I just want to say how disappointed I am. And so from now on, I think I'm going to put some legislation in that whenever we do any types of public information, trying to gather public input, I'm going to put something that you have to consider. You have to do them all in north, south, east, west, and central of the city. You have to include at least 5 sectors of the city. You can exclude an entire sector of the city and say that you're listening to the public, unless our public just doesn't matter. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. Councilman Cogdill.
Thank you. I think I'm a bit confused. This is for national search or just a local search? These funds.
This is for, local and national.
Okay, so this $80,000 is to cover whether, we gain resumes throughout the country or just locally. And Madam President, you said your district was excluded, meaning, how would that happen?
I've asked more than once to conclude it. I'm sorry. I've asked more than once to include it, and I think in the mayor's idea, his thoughts were that we were included in the budget process, and I said, but so were other areas included in the budget. There was no excuse to me to exclude an entire. You can't say how inclusive you want to be and then exclude an entire sector of the city.
Well, maybe I should look. Maybe my neighborhoods were excluded too. I don't know.
We had one in Carrick.
Go ahead, Councilman Wilson, if it's okay with the chair.
Just for clarity, because we did have an engagement on the north side. The 80,000 that we're seeing here isn't going towards those meetings, correct? It's just going towards.
I know what they're going towards.
Search. Okay.
Clarity. So I'm sorry, but I just.
Yeah, I hear your concern. I'm just like, I guess I also wanted to know, like, we're talking about 80 grand for an agency to assist with the search, not the community meetings that we're seeing.
Correct.
Yeah, so the director is here, Director Schmidt. Thank you for joining us. The $80,000 is for a national local search period.
Correct. It is for a firm to work with our committee, as well as do review the survey and notes that we have from the community listening sessions to help us develop the full job description and the qualifications and qualities that we're looking for in a chief to help us with the selection. Sorry,
Just walk down the steps.
just ran up the step. Was in a hearing. To develop the list for the chiefs, to help narrow it down. So we have a kind of an outside look
And what,
at who those candidates are.
what do you know about what Madam President's saying about her district being excluded from the search? What's that mean to you?
So we had one in the south. We also had the virtual one that included anybody citywide.
Wait, excuse me, you're talking about the meeting that we had at Carrick High School.
Correct.
Okay, so that's not really a search. It was just getting
No.
input.
What those are, community listening sessions. Which unfortunately have not gotten the attendance that we were hoping. Even the one in Carrick, there was
Yep.
probably about 30
Yep.
people.
Yep.
The one in zone 1 was up at Perry High. Thank you. High school that had about 30. Homewood probably had the most. There were probably about 40 people there. The virtual one, we had about 25 residents attend that. However, the firm is going to do additional community listening sessions as well. Some of that was a bandwidth, but also some of it was as we saw a lack of response, we started to combine some meetings together.
So, Madam President, I guess what you answered my question. It's not that District 2 has been excluded from the search. They've been excluded from
They have been excluded.
the.
I'll speak for District
Yeah,
2.
okay.
They have been excluded. There was not a meeting there. They're going to include some of those comments in this search. And so my district was excluded. And so I'm going to call for for public hearing in District 2 so that the public can have their chance to talk publicly about it now.
Yeah, and the survey is actually the thing we have that has the most information. There's a lot more questions there. There's only 2 questions that we do in the listening sessions.
Be clear, the search has not begun,
No,
right? You've not collected resumes, you've not gotten input from any.
no, the posting hasn't even gone.
Okay, and this $80,000 is going to cover the search. This, to me, I thought it was going to be more expensive to do a national search than $80,000. So this is a one-time, we're going to collect the data that we need to make the right decision. The mayor's going to make what he feels is the correct decision for the next chief from this $80,000. We're not going to go spending $250,000 for a national search. This is all we will need for that. Okay, that was it for me. I just wanted to. Thank
you, Councilman Burgess.
Chief, thank you for, Mr. Director, rather, thank you for your leadership, Public Safety Director. I want to support the president's concerns and wonder if along with our chair of public safety and the president and yourself, council, and I'm willing to even, not my district, but I'm willing to come if invited. I'll come and sit with the president and listen myself. I don't think, I'm just going to say it publicly since we're in this public conversation, I don't think you'll be against joining us, and the president will host a cable cast, maybe even a town hall meeting, which that'd be my suggestion, so that it's not, so you can blend a conversation rather, but it's your choice if you want to do public hearing. But whatever you want to have, and I'll come too, that we do it together, that we bring public safety and we can give out the surveys and still have it in her district where everyone feels included. I know the answer is right, but that's going to be my sort of Solomon approach to this conversation.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, you want a second round?
No.
If not, all those in favor say aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Chair, I'm sorry. I just wanted to add one thing. So you said they weren't well attended. And I understand your concerns, Madam President. Are they worth having? I mean, were they influential for for the mayor? Did he get good information feedback from the community? Was it,
Yeah, I think we did get good information and feedback, and I think we could do the same thing. There's no reason we couldn't do the same thing in the district that wants one.
Yes, he could.
and we don't have any applications yet. We've not.
No.
Okay, good. Okay,
It
I just
hasn't
wanna
even-
Make sure we haven't begun the search. Nobody's applied yet. We're,
No.
at one point, we're going to put out, hey, we're accepting applications to be the
Right.
next police chief of the city of Pittsburgh, correct?
I'm hoping that'll happen very
Right.
soon.
Gotcha.
I am not
Council
applying.
approves it.
For the record, I'm not applying.
Can I just say, I just want to say thank you both for your job, for the job that you're doing. And I do appreciate that you always respond, and I'm excited, that, you know, for you to have the opportunity to be in the position you're in now, Paula. But I do want to say that I was really disappointed that there shall never be a time that you exclude, I don't care what you're doing, an entire sector of the city of Pittsburgh. And I know that there's sometimes, I worked for the school district. I know you sometimes, have meetings where you want to get the outcomes and that you're looking for. But I said, before nobody was even really paying attention, you probably would have had 5 people at the meeting. But now I'm sure we're going to pack that meeting because, and I think part of it is, I have to say, we have probably one of the highest number of police officers living in my district. And so I'm starting to wonder if that's why it was excluded. So it doesn't, I'm going to make sure that everyone's voices are heard. That's all.
If I could follow, we're actually doing a separate one for just police officers.
Well, I'd love to hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
I'd love for that one to be public. Thank
I'll
you.
work with the union on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention, affirmative recommendation. That takes us, thank you all. That takes us to Bill 890.
Bill 890, resolution providing for the authorization to make all legitimate expenditures for payments and agreements with various agencies for job development and employment services necessary to implement the 2022 Neighborhood Employment Program and providing the periodic transfer of funds to be used in the 2022 Neighborhood Employment Program for payment of the costs not to exceed $150,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion, Councilman Wilson.
This is, so if you don't mind just updating, is this the typical funding for this program, or is this additional new type of funding for the separate part of the program?
Deidre Cochran, senior manager, Pittsburgh Partnership, will have that information for you.
And where does Deidre live? District 2. Just saying.
I was just wondering if this is it says to implement the 2022 program, so I didn't know if this was just continuation of what we typically do, or is there something new about this?
Oh, do I have to push?
I'm sorry to bring it up for that one simple question.
That's okay, but yeah, we've been doing this since 1986.
Yeah. Sorry, once again.
No, that's okay. Thank you. I apologize. I didn't know how to work this.
I'm good, thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 891.
Bill 891, resolution providing the authorization to make all legitimate expenditures for payments and agreements with various agencies to provide job development and employment services, wages, and fringe benefits for supervisors, staff, workers' compensation, unemployment compensation, vocational skills training, and on-the-job training, outreach, recruitment costs, and administrative expenditures necessary to implement the 2022 Pittsburgh Partnership Employment Program and providing the periodic transfer of funds to be used in the 2022 Pittsburgh Partnership Employment Program, cost not to exceed $235,000.
Motion to approve.
Second discussion.
Discussion?
I just wanted to know, we had a post agenda the other day and talked about the effort that the outreach, the GVI outreach team does, and really the public safety initiative ongoing initiative to increase that presence. And it was mentioned that they utilize an app, a communication, a way that the outreach workers communicate. There's jobs that are uploaded to the platform, and then that's I don't know. I mean, I guess then there's another process where they're trying to get people jobs. Is there any way that we can connect this with that? I don't really,
No,
I don't really have
actually-
eloquent words at this point. I'm just like,
That's okay.
just,
For the Pittsburgh partnership, we work with state funded money.
Mm.
So it has to be earmarked for, like, we work with the neighborhood employment centers. We also work with the Department of Human Services for like welfare to work type programs. So that money has to be spent that way.
yeah, I guess I'm just wondering, do you have a connection with Operation Better Block to, because that's where they're uploading the jobs to the app through that organization. Do you have a connection with Operation Better Block, or can we make that connection so that whatever is available that they can also see on their end?
We don't have a connection with them. I would have to look more into that to see if that was something we can do, but I can definitely look into it and.
Yeah, I see there's an opportunity here, and there's some intersection of where we can, I mean, we're paying this through the city funds. We're also paying for the outreach, paying for that app. And so I think maybe we can
Okay.
do that.
And mainly it pays for salaries too, because the Pittsburgh Partnership staff is funded through the Department of Human Services. And when we bill for salaries, that has to be specifically for the EARN program. So the NECs is actually money given to us to help operate that for the staff to actually operate those programs. So it's not, it's kind of used more for salaries and to contract out some services.
Yeah, typically I ask the questions on the numbers and how successful it's been. But every time I ask it, it's always a good story. All right, well, I'm in general, I'm just interested in how we can,
Okay.
and then or even put more funds to it to, if it's successful, to build that up, to use our own product.
We can even set up a meeting where we could, maybe I could even come to your office or, we can talk.
Here, or maybe we can set up a Zoom call with Operation.
Oh,
Better Block.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Think
And our
through-
office is,
yeah,
we're
think
not
through that.
located in the city county building. We're located on Wood Street. But
Thanks.
whatever you need, we can be there. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam President.
I just want to thank you all for your work. I know that you do a lot and you really helped us get stuff up and running in our area. And I'm curious with the employment centers. That's also connected with, to this with you.
Yes.
Right. And so it seems like it takes a long time when people get their payments. And so I'm wondering if there's a way to speed up that process. That's all I just want to bring that to your attention. But I do appreciate that you got one up and running in Sheridan for us and the work that you do across the district for me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all your.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they're
That
slow on.
takes us to our Land Use Economic Development Committee, which is chaired by Councilman Wilson. We have one new paper, Bill 895.
Bill 895, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Office of Management and Budget to enter into an agreement or agreements with community-based organizations for community and economic development for planning assistance in various neighborhoods in the city and providing operating support for these groups and provide for the payment at a cost not to exceed $500,000.
Motion to hold 1 week.
Those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Bill be held 1 week. That takes us to Urban Recreation Committee, which is chaired by Councilman Burgess. One deferred paper, Bill 860.
Bill 860, resolution instructing the Director of Parks and Recreation in the Department of Public Works to amend the rules and regulations for sports field permits to provide priority use to athletic organizations comprised of City of Pittsburgh residents.
Motion to hold 1 week? Motion to hold 1 week.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill be held 1 week. That takes us to Innovation and Performance Asset Management Committee chaired by Councilwoman Strasburger. Our first new paper is Bill 892.
Bill 892, resolution amending Resolution 526 of 2022, authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Innovation and Performance to enter into an agreement or agreements or amendments with the Computronics USA, Inc. to extend the term on a month-to-month basis at a cost not to exceed $140,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation, Bill 893.
Bill 893, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Innovation and Performance to enter into an agreement or agreements and amendments thereto with Foster and Foster Consulting Actuaries, Inc. for municipal pension contribution data system at a sum not to exceed $250,000.
Motion to approve.
Second discussion.
Discussion, Councilman Wilson?
Yeah, I was wondering if this is a typical evaluation that's being done, like a yearly or annual or maybe biannual? Or is there something that triggered this recently?
It's my understanding that Gwen Moore is going to be available to discuss.
I saw Heidi Norman come on camera.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Yes. Hi, it looks like my light behind me is blocking my face, but I wanted to let you know this is to replace an application that has been managed by the B3 consulting company. It is a legacy application that runs off of the payroll system to calculate the correct contributions to our municipal pension. This new software system went out to RFP, and Foster and Foster Consulting Actuaries were the winners of the RFP. So this is the authorization to enter into that agreement with them.
And I think your question was as to the term. It will be a multi-year agreement. We're assuming that once it will take about 9 months to complete the implementation testing and go live. And thereafter, we would process our pension contribution and all of the pension information that's currently in the custom application to a commercial off-the-shelf application that would be available online or in person to all of our staff and pensioners over the next several years. We will be requesting additional funding to support the ongoing costs thereafter.
All right, thanks.
Gwen, can you please introduce yourself for the public record?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Gwendolyn Moore, Assistant Director, Business Technology with the Department of Innovation and Performance. And I do manage the applications team. And this particular application is supported by us through our independent contractor B3. And as I said, we are hoping with your approval to move this to a commercial off-the-shelf system to be managed by Foster and Foster, who also are currently the actuaries for the municipal pension office.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. That takes us to our last bill, Bill 894.
Bill 894, resolution amending Resolution 817 of 2021, authorizing the mayor and the director of innovation and performance on behalf of the city of Pittsburgh to enter into an agreement or agreements or amendments thereto with the change agent training for access to their learning management system and consultative assistance to adapt the City of Pittsburgh Gold Belt Workshop for e-learning by increasing the not to exceed amount by $36,000.
Motion to approve.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. That does exhaust our meeting agenda for today. We do have meeting announcements. This afternoon at 1:30, council will hold a cablecast public hearing on bills 747 and 754 as they relate to the CMU institutional master plan. Speaker registration closes at 12 o'clock today. Next week, council will hold council's regular meeting of council is on Monday, November 14th at 10 a.m., commencing with the Mayor Ed Gainey's 2023 budget address. Council standing committees meeting will be Tuesday, November 15th at 10 a.m. Speaker registration closes at 9 a.m. Monday for the regular meeting and 9 a.m. Tuesday for the standing committees meeting. To register, fill out the sign-up form on the council meeting webpage by the deadlines. You may also call the city clerk's office at 412-255-2138. Also, next Tuesday, November 15th at 1:30 PM, there will be an overview and policy discussion for the 2023 City Council budget. Budget hearings will begin Wednesday, the 16th at 10 AM. Anything from members? If not, need a motion to approve the minutes and adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.